I consider that women couldn't even vote until 1920, it's a major accomplishment for women to be able to join the armed services, and specifically the Air Force. In just 65 years, the percentage of women in the Air Force has gone from less than 1% of the total force to today being the branch with the highest percentage of women serving at 18.9%. As part of that 18.9%, I feel proud to be able to serve with no question of my gender or my abilities based on gender. Because of the women who served before me, I'm able to do anything in the Air Force that a man can do. Women have been making history since 1948, and they continue to do so today in the Air Force. Women in the Air Force was an organization they called WAF, created to bring women into the very limited services that was available when they were initially allowed into the Air Force. It was created in 1948 when the Women's Armed Service Integration Act was signed by President Truman. And that was the legislation that initially allowed women to join the armed forces. Initially, the WAF was limited to 4,000 women total, enlisted women total, and 300 officers. And the WAF program was in existence until 1976. And at that time, women and men were able to join on an almost equal basis. The first WAF recruit was Sergeant Esther Blake. She enlisted at the first possible moment in 1948. It was on July 8th. And Colonel Geraldine Pratt May was the first director of WAF. She received her commission in August 1942, and she was promoted to full bird colonel upon becoming director of the WAF. She was the first woman in the Air Force to attain a full bird colonel rank. So the total population of women in the Air Force today is around 61,807. And that's more than 1,000 times more women serving today than were initially even allowed to serve in 1948. And then today, they do so on a totally volunteer basis. They do, nobody's trying to meet quotas. Women serve because they're able to and because they want to. And this year, January 2013, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta announced that there was the ban that was on women serving in combat was lifted. So now, if a woman wanted to volunteer for a combat role and could meet all of the physical demands and all of the mental demands to do that job, she would be able to just as well as a man could. And that is a major, major milestone for women serving in every branch of service. And to know that if I wanted to, I could go and I could apply for one of those combat positions and I wouldn't be turned away simply based on gender. And that's not in full effect either until I think 2015 was the last minute that if there was a certain role that they felt women couldn't fill, they need to put an exemption letter. And that'll be 2015 is when it should be in full effect. But it's the last major roadblock for women to have equality serving with men. So for 65 years since women have been serving, it's just been one milestone after another in their quest for equality. And they're well on their way, women in the Air Force, to being fully equal to men. The future has never been brighter for women serving. And as a woman serving in the Air Force, I'm proud. And I'm proud of every woman who has served before me.